A lot of the time when people think of the villains of Batman Returns, they think of the Cat and the Penguin. But far too often forgotten is the movie's third antagonist, the Man. This character is a particularly interesting case, as unlike the movie's other big bads, he was an original creation made for this movie specifically. I'm talking of course about twisted business tycoon, Max Schreck, played to perfection by Christopher Walken. He's a cold, careless businessman who puts his legacy before everything else. He's not a full-fledged villain necessarily, but by nature he's absolutely every bit as demented as those he shares a screen with. Though he doesn't wear a mask, at least not one we can visibly see. Max's mask is the performance that he puts on for the public, while in private lying to investors, manipulating others, and even taking lives in order to preserve his own legacy. When we're first introduced to the character, we see the separation of the person and the persona immediately, with the way he's spoken to being far different to how he's spoken of in front of an audience. His persona is adored, but as a person, he's despised. He's thought highly of by his audience, but not by his peers.
We have with us tonight a man who really needs no introduction. He's given so much to our city. Will you welcome, please, Gotham's own Santa Claus, Max Schreck.
I almost made off with our mover and shaker, Max Schreck, but where is that insufferable son of a...
Shrek's a greedy, cruel man. Every bit as awful as the company that he keeps. He's not a hideous monster man from the sewers. He's not dressed up in something that looks like it was put together by Edward Scissorhands. He's just a guy in a suit. And yet despite that, he is so eerily unnerving. One thing I've loved about this character is that despite being a businessman, he looks exactly like what he is, a Tim Burton creation. It's not a complaint either. For obvious reasons, he's very much at home here. His bizarre mannerisms and the raw unpredictability of a Christopher Walken performance truly put this character over the top. There's an uncertainty that comes with the character's every action. Take for instance when he smiles directly to Selina's face, playing off his threats as a punchline, only to then, without hesitation, push her to her death, or, in this case, rebirth. He's sought out by the Penguin, who for one reason or another sees him as the perfect partner in crime. Well, less emphasis on partner and more emphasis on crime. Aware of Max's two-faced cutthroat actions, the Penguin basically blackmails the mogul into bringing him back to his rightful place as one of Gotham's elite, which, when prompted by evidence, Max agrees to. But being the cunning individual that he is, he decides to turn this potential negative into a probable positive. After building up goodwill for the man from the sewers, he tries to push him into office, giving Cobblepot a seat of power to sign off on his own big plan, to depower Gotham City. These two have much more in common than what your eye can detect. They were both born to riches, despite one being discarded to rags. They're both self-centered, untrustworthy madmen who see their underlings as disposable pawns in their schemes. Strangely enough, this strange really ties the movie together, playing a vital role in the origins of Catwoman and the plans of the Penguin. He even comes into conflict with Bruce Wayne on a few occasions, being that the two are opposing billionaire business moguls. There's a clear rivalry between the two, and I appreciate that his issues with Bruce lie separate from a problem with Batman. Schreck doesn't take an issue with both sides of the character. He has a conflict with a competitor, but is otherwise indifferent to the Dark Knight, so long as he doesn't involve himself in his involvements. And when he finds out that the two are one and the same, it doesn't make that much of a difference to him, because anyone snooping around in Schreck's business ordeals is at the very least an attempted casualty. Yet despite his connection to all these characters, nothing really comes of it. The movie's other two villains feel screwed over by their cohort turned foe, trying to take their revenge on him separately of each other to varying degrees of success. But in terms of his own evil master plan, his plotline really just falls by the wayside. His evil plans are never thwarted, they're just never really realized. We know he has the intent to do bad things, but he doesn't have the opportunity to see them through. The movie was allegedly initially made with him seeing that objective through. The last scene was meant to be Batman looking up toward a flashing bat signal in the sky, blinking rapidly along with every other light in Gotham City. But this was changed for a variety of reasons. One of which being that fans didn't seem to understand the implication, which is fair given the fact that this movie was juggling several plot lines, several plans, and several villainous characters. But this was also done because following initial test screenings, there was more of a demand for Catwoman. So instead, it was decided to let fans know that the femme fatale was alive and still kicking. I think one of my favorite aspects of this character has to be his son Chip. Actor Andrew Bryanarski was tasked with playing Max Schreck's son, and in doing so, he spent the runtime doing a goofy-as-hell Christopher Walken impression. It seems a lot less like a legitimate attempt at sounding like the actual Christopher Walken, and much more like an SNL parody of Christopher Walken. It's so hammy and over the top that comparatively, it makes the actual Christopher Walken seem tame.
You'll have to go through me! Chip. Dad, go! Save yourself! Dad, go!
But I'm not knocking it. I actually unironically love it. I think it's because he gets such a limited amount of screen time that he doesn't get the opportunity to overstay his welcome. He's definitely too goofy and over the top for the film that he's in. His acting kind of feels like it would be better suited for Batman and Robin, actually. But because he's on screen for mere minutes, broken up into seconds between tens of minutes, Chip always gets a chuckle out of me, and is integral to the Max Schreck character. I mean that both on a personal level, as I find him to be a highly entertaining accessory to his more famous father, but also literally, as he provides Max with motivation. In addition to his own greed, Max acts out in an effort to provide the best life imaginable for his son.
This power plant is my legacy. It's what I leave behind for Chip. Nothing must prevent that.
Which is commendable. However, his way of going about it is condemnable. Also, Maximilian, you're worth maximum millions. I think Chip is gonna do just fine. Just make sure you leave him in the will. Max's relationship with Chip really humanizes the character. It is the one time the character is ever shown to, on occasion, be selfless, sacrificing himself by replacing his son as the target of Penguin's revenge. Despite his naturally brutal nature, he isn't without chosen compassion. He may put himself above everybody else, but that courtesy is extended to his bloodline as well, for some of the time. Despite being a one-off character, Schreck still left behind an interesting legacy. There's a lot of strange behind-the-scenes accepted lore that is either just theoretical, or just straight up untrue. A lot of people seem to be under the belief that this character was originally meant to be Harvey Dent, with the character's eventual demise being the birth of Two-Face. Not only is that very untrue, but Harvey being in the role wouldn't have made sense for this story. The little we saw of Harvey in the first film depicted him as honest and noble. So for him to act out in the way that Max Schreck does in this movie wouldn't make sense for the character pre-Two-Face transformation. Keep in mind the split personality being a part of the character's history prior to his scarring originated from Batman the Animated Series, which came out after Batman Returns. Also, Harvey was a district attorney, not a tycoon, so how that story would work without Schreck specifically is really just anyone's guess. Others seem to be under the impression that Max Schreck played a part in Batman the Animated Series, but was renamed to Roland Daggett. While there is some similarity between the two, with both characters shown to be corrupt businessmen, outside of that there's no other comparison to be made. However, Roland Daggett was an original creation to Batman the Animated Series, who ironically enough went on to make his way to the big screen in The Dark Knight Rises. I don't think either of these accepted facts are entirely accurate. You could find no concrete evidence for either. I think in the past I might have even accepted them as fact here on the channel, but after doing some deep research, I got nothing other than hearsay. Just a lot of he said, she said, nobody actually said speculation. The Max Schreck character has never been seen anywhere else, outside of a tie-in depicting the events of the movie, and I think that's a real shame. You'd surely think that this character would go the Harley Quinn route, be made for moving media and then transition back into comics. But as of right now, he's been tragically forgotten and lost to time. Another interesting thing to note is that in some of the first drafts of the script, Max Schreck was written in to be Oswald's younger brother, which I think would have made a little bit more sense. It would have made Penguin's motivations more evident, and given the two more of a reason to interact. That plot is not only taken out of the final cut of the film, but was taken out of the final cuts of the script. And if I'm being honest here, I'm a little let down by that. This Brotherhood of Bad would have added a lot to the final product. It would have been a great commentary on wealth and class, how one born different still might be excluded to keep up appearances. Can you really be upper class when you live beneath them? A difference in upbringing and favoritism. All of these elements could have made for a really interesting watch. To be fair, I don't think the movie is terribly worsened without some of these plot threads. I just feel it could have potentially been bettered with their inclusion. Though there was more than enough going on already in the film, and I can easily see how maybe these additions might have come off as excessive. Regardless, I think both Max and Chip Shrek definitely deserve to be given their due. They're unique additions to the world of Gotham that I'd love to see utilized once again. With that being said, if you like this video and want to see a video on the Catwoman from Batman Returns, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
Your favor looks like a cat.
Now, before I go, I don't usually do this. I've had a Patreon for a while now, but I've really struggled with what to do with it. Luckily, the time is upon us where I can actually offer you guys exclusive and extended content that I can't make here on the channel. With new restrictions on what kind of content can be monetized or hell, even shown here on the platform, now's as good a time as ever to be placing my completely unaltered, uncensored, extended videos on my Patreon. I don't want to put my videos behind a paywall, but that's kind of the best place to put them for the time being. So if there was ever a time to give a stranger money on the internet, well, I would like to think that now is that time. Just so everyone knows, all the money I make off my Patreon goes directly back into the channel. Everyone who donates to the Patreon will not be seen as a fan, but rather a producer of said content. And you will be credited as such in the closing credits here on the channel. So if you have the time and $1 to spare, help a guy out. If you can't, I appreciate your time and attention nonetheless.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.